Hello, my friends. I am back again for another Friday video. Am I going to make this a habit? Hopefully, maybe. So, today we're going to continue with the fishing village that we started a couple of weeks ago. If you'll recall, we've already made a weird shop and a tavern/inn. This week, we are going to finish all of the interiors, so we have 3 buildings to do. They're all pretty small compared to the first 2, though one of them's a little bit strange. But before we get into that, I wanted to show you guys real quick that I did go ahead and animate both the hanging clothes over the window and the cloth in the doorway in the tavern. But don't they look so good? Oh my gosh. So, I mentioned we have 3 buildings left to complete, and I want to get them all done today. So, buckle in, sit back, grab a snack, and let's get started. We're going to do the smallest building first. This right up here, this little shack, it's actually just a walkthrough to get to the other side of the pier thing, where I'm going to have a fisherman guy who's going to give you a quest. It doesn't matter. The point is that this is going to be a small and mostly useless space. I start by making my little room in RPGMaker with a door on either side, and then it's importing it into GIMP. Once in GIMP, I start doing a little color adjusting, and then I work on the walls and floors. The walls seem a little bit weird because I think I'm using a floor texture, but they're going to be layered, so we're not going to notice that. I just needed some generic wood. For the floor, I'm going to do this very rustic looking wood board, color adjust it, and some more color adjusting. Then I think we're good to go. I'll add in a little window to mimic the one we can see on the outside of the building. Just imagine there's a window on both sides. And from there I can start cluttering this place up. Boxes, crates of things. To be honest, I'm kind of having some trouble figuring out what to say here. This is a pretty generic storage shed. I imagine it's being used by the entire community just to store some random things. Sometimes maps aren't really all that deep. Sometimes you just need a random little room full of things and like a treasure box, you know? If every single area is a 10 out of 10, then every single area is basically a 1 out of 10. You need variety. Of course, I'll hang up some fishing stuff on the wall. And I'm just gonna scooch those doors in a little bit closer, so it matches the outside a little bit better. And then we're ready for light and shadows. Simple, easy, one down. Now, I did mention that there was a slightly weird one, right? That's going to be this next one. It's this house right down here on the water. We're probably going to spend the most time here. We start with a very generic, small, box-like room, but right away I'm adding some strange architectural elements that are honestly mostly going to be covered up. I don't know what I was even doing here. I had this idea in my head of like being able to see the rafters, and to be honest, it just didn't quite work out in the end, so I did a slightly strange shape to the roof and back wall. I went back and forth on exactly what I was gonna do with that little hole in the middle, but I ended up settling on something like this. By the way, with that big hole in the floor, the idea is that you're going to be able to see the ocean through there. And this small building, it's a house, kind of, but it's also a little bit like a shrine. There are 2 people who live in this house, a little girl and her grandmother. It's not her real grandmother. She's a shaman who serves the water spirit, and she adopted the little girl to raise her to follow in her footsteps as a shaman. So this place is where they live, but also it's a shrine to the water spirit, where through that gap in the floor, you can donate gold to the water spirit, and if you throw enough money in the ocean, you get a magic shard. While I continue decorating, why don't I just show you Grandma and the kid? So Grandma's a human, but the little girl is something called an elith. In my game, eliths are fairies, elves, demons, JRPG, generic magical humanoid creatures. I've always loved the trend in a lot of classic RPGs, where there are humans who have discovered technology and who have grown through technology, and then there is some other creature who instead rely on natural magic. It's a very classic storyline, But since I've always loved it, I did decide to pay tribute to it a little bit in my own game. One of the coolest things about making a retro-style game today is that we can look back on those nostalgic tropes and subvert them a little bit. A game that I think did a really good job at this was Chained Echoes, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have played. It was huge when it came out. But back to the map. This photo on the mantle is Grandma whenever she was young. It's from a Mongolian tile set. I do actually have a culture in my game that's vaguely Mongolian-based. You go to that area a little bit later, and it's pretty far away from where we are right here. I'm imagining that Miss Shaman Grandma was originally from that country and then just immigrated over here. Now, even though Grandma is technically the little girl's teacher, I also wanted them to have a very sweet, soft, familial relationship too. So I'm making sure that I put lots of cozy, comfortable items here in their little house. I want them to have a good life together. So, you might think that since I'm adding shadows, we're done, but oh no, this one is far from done. I did mention this was going to be kind of a weird one. What makes it so weird is that I'm going to use a lot of doodads. I've decided to include the footage of me making them, but I sped it up a lot because it's just so tedious. All I'm doing is I am shearing or rotating these prayer knots and hangly dangly things just back and forth. We're making them blow in the wind. Now, you might say, Tay, there's not going to be wind. This is a closed off little shack. Wrong, wrong. First of all, wind will come up through the hole in the floor. And you know, even if there's not enough wind to make everything blow around, magic. It's magical. It's the ocean spirit vibrating it. I don't know, I just thought it looked cool. Don't tell me it looks weird. I kind of know already. It's gonna stay. And then after I really annoyingly place every single one of these into the map through doodads, shout out to the Yanfly Doodads plugin, we have this. Ugh, this one is my favorite one. That might be a controversial take, but I just love it. I love the little girl. I like the way she's kicking her feet. I like the way everything is so moving. But okay, we've still got one more house to do, and this one is actually important for a little side quest. So I had no idea what I wanted this house to look like, but I did know the NPC that I was going to put in here. So meet Fen. Fen is a jewelry maker. Fen and their husband are going to live in this house, and their husband Marlowe is also the item seller for this small town. We don't have a lot of like shops. We don't have a weapon shop or an armor shop. We've got the weird junk store, we've got an item shop, and then we've got Fen the jewelry maker. And so jewelry in my game are accessories, and accessories grant weird like buffs or stat increases or sometimes just very strange passive effects. But if you give Fen materials, they will make you jewelry. But anyway, it's Pride Month, so Fen and their husband need a really nice, cozy house to live in. Also, I personally wasn't feeling too good whenever I was making this map, so cozy vibes. One of the tile sets that I used a lot in this house was Shabby Cottage by Aqua that you can get on itch.io. Shout out to this tile set. I almost want to gatekeep it and not tell you guys about it because I love it so much. It's so unique and weird, and it is like a paid tile set, but like the pieces are so worth it, and like I am absolutely a lover of free assets, so you know, if I could find these things for free I would have gotten them. But the quality of this tile set is just so good. But back to the NPCs who live here, Fen and their husband Marlowe. Marlowe is a fisherman, and he travels often, even up to like big port cities, so he can bring back some cool stuff for them to have in their house, like this little radio, and that beautiful stove from the Shabby Cottage by Aqua. And I didn't film it, but I did decide that this house was just a little bit too big and roomy, so I shrunk it by one tile. You'll see that in the final product whenever we're walking around. But yeah, just a little bit more clutter, and then light and shadow, and then we have Finn and Marlowe's house. It's only Finn who's in here right now. Marlowe will be outside near a big pile of things selling you stuff in his little makeshift item shop. Speaking of people who are outside, Grandma is also going to be outside, Grandma the Shaman. But to see the outside NPCs and honestly the outside everything, come back next week. We'll finish it. Oh, and since that'll be the end of our little fishing village series, I'll go ahead and float the question, what other kind of things do you guys want to see? And I've said it before, but I will just say it again. Thank you guys so much for these super, super kind comments. I have actually started crying at how nice some of you guys are, and it's so fun to talk about games together. So please keep telling me about your projects, and let's just keep talking about games and game development. Thank you again if you stuck around this long in the video. Feel free to click the YouTube button things, or don't, that's okay. If you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, I have my Ko-Fi linked in the description below, as well as the itch.io for my game, where I will definitely post updates at some point. Oh, and here's a reminder that I have an email in the description box that you are free to use to email me. Send me your game, I'd love to play it on this channel. Alternatively, you can just ask me questions and I will be happy to answer. Anyway, I think that I've rambled on for enough, so I'm gonna go, but thank you so much for hanging out with me, and have a good weekend. Bye!